3, 2, 1.
Racing World is presented by Race Control Magazine. Why, hello there. Welcome into the Racing World podcast. My name is Darcy Watergrave. Bob, wave to everybody. That's Bob McELREA and, of course, David Turner. Yeah, he's got his PNC Bank cap on. I understand why. We are Racing World. Thanks very much for joining us. Remember, if you are listening or watching, please share this, please like this, and please subscribe to this as well. If you do, it gives us the justification to carry on. We'd like to thank you all from Spotify, Anchor FM, and Radio Public as well. And, of course, all your YouTube as well, checking out Racing World. And it's been a massive weekend for motorsport. I kind of feel I say that every weekend, guys. What do you think? It's always something huge.
We'll rephrase
Every weekend's
a
a
massive weekend for New Zealanders in motorsport.
Well, there you go.
Okay, we'll do that.
That sounds good, but that's normally the case every weekend anyway.
No, I was just trying to put a
And
flash
the
on
other thing
it.
is, whoever had any doubts that he was going to win, whoever thought he wasn't going to win.
That guy.
I did include him right up to yesterday morning.
Yeah, let's talk about it. This is the focus for the first half of the program. We're looking at SCOTT DIXON with championship number 6. It's an extraordinary number. I'm sure he's still pinching himself. You're the man who's in it up to your eyeballs. I know I was stressed up into the very last lap waiting for someone like Takuma Sato to debone him out of nowhere. I'm sorry, I couldn't help myself. I was worried. Were we not aware? That was a very, very tense race. All the yellows toward the end of that. That says to me so much about, well, they call him Iceman, don't they? The calm within the cockpit for one SCOTT DIXON for what he did.
If they had a heart rate monitor on, that would show how Iceman is.
It says a lot about the Ganassi organisation, not detracting from the Penske organisation here, but they went in with their game plan. They knew what they had to do, and they executed it, just as Newgarden did. Actually, he knew he needed to win the race. He did that. Just couldn't do any more than that.
Yeah.
Yes, he did. But all the other variables, first street course of the year. With the aero screen, never been run on a street course before. Heat build-up was way more than anyone had expected it would be. The runoff area is covered in the marbles from the tyres. Great way to end a championship because it kept you on the edge of your seat right to the end, especially because our boy was involved.
And so many restarts as well.
Yep.
I mean, it just kept on going, didn't it?
Yellows.
It was a bit of a demolition derby, to be honest.
Well, it started off pretty
fair,
fair, though, didn't it?
Yeah.
It started off with very little in the way of cautions. It wasn't looking like it was going to happen,
right.
and then suddenly they all turned up. It's like you wait for the bus. And
but
none for an hour.
But most of those restarts, or for many of the restarts, Scott wasn't out on his own. He was in amongst the middle of it.
Most dangerous place to be.
And once the lap started, when they're going through the concrete bits and the S's and all that sort of thing, he was on. He was level with another car, Jack Harvey or somebody anyway. He was always level with another car, so he was playing it risky in many ways.
Some pretty sound decision making though when he did back off when he realised it just wasn't worth it because he had to. Well, but I suppose if you drive too defensively, you can get yourself into all sorts of situations as well. So, I suppose his nerve is what got me right the way through that. You expect nothing else. And when you look at what Newgarden was up to and some of his hairy passing manoeuvres toward that to get that first place, you got to applaud him for that. It was all or nothing.
Yeah. As a race, I forget the championship for a moment. As a race, it was a really quite interesting race. Too many accidents, but that's what a street course is, isn't it? It's concrete walls,
especially that place.
But because we had specifically an interest in Scott times 2, how if one was going to take the championship and how the other one was going to do in his first race. It was a fascinating event to watch, and it was quite fascinating to see how Scott, the Dixon version, actually kind of. You got the impression he knew where he was on the racetrack all the time. He knew that he was in the position to win the championship, not necessarily the race. And I don't think he went out to win the race. Don't care what they say. I think he was always aware of where Newgarden was in front, and that's all he had to do.
You'll hear that from him when we play in the clip that I got with him yesterday. But he very much says you have a job to do, and you just got to focus on the job that you have to do. So they knew. Speaking of the other Scott, I actually think he did a really good job.
Now, is that what we're going to call him forevermore? The other Scott?
The other Scott. Scott 2.0?
No.
Scott Penske.
Why don't we just do Dixon and McLaughlin?
Well, speaking of McLaughlin, I'm going to have my little rant because we always have to have a little bit of a rant.
We don't have to.
Well, we don't have to, but I'm going to anyway
yourself.
because some of the New Zealand media, so I'm only criticising New Zealand media here, were kind of critical of his performance yesterday. Well, rubbish. It was a great performance, considering the fact that a week earlier the guy was in Bathurst. He'd flown all the way to LA, then LA to Charlotte, got off the plane, went it straight into a simulator, had time in Charlotte, then flew to St. Petersburg and Tampa Bay, and then went into a street course that he'd never even seen before.
In a car that is markedly different from
Yep.
what he's had
Bloody good
huge
job.
success in. I think when you talk to, not that I've, ever driven any open wheelers or saloon cars like that, but every time I talk to any athlete about their time, they say these supercars are the strangest things I've ever driven in my life. So for him to be locked in that and then win 3 championships and then suddenly in a completely different kettle of fish to do what he did, you got to applaud him.
Well,
You have to.
I'm just going to look at qualifying and just forget the positions, but people that were behind him, Marco Andretti and Max Chilton. Now, these are guys that have been in the series for a very long time right now, and he was ahead of them.
But
So
just think honestly, okay, he didn't have to change the side of the car because he's sitting in the middle of the car in an INDYCAR, but suddenly he doesn't have the big
Sequential
gearbox there. He's not fiddling and fart-arsing with the brakes and the roll bars every 200 metres like they do in the car. It's a completely different animal.
suddenly he's
totally
got all
different
sorts of things like weight jackers and stuff to
but
deal
he's sitting
with.
with his bum on the ground for a start instead of sitting,
Yes.
a few feet
In
in
a
the ground.
taxi.
Every single thing is different completely. And I think he made 2 mistakes. He went off and he had to get restarted to come back again in practice. And the second mistake, unfortunately, took him out of the race when he got a bit ambitious on one corner and hit Andretti and then bounced into Rinus VK, who was hung up on a hook for ages.
But turn 1 at St. Pete leaves itself open for that, and there was a lot of other experienced people in that race and previous races that have gone off there. So I think, and as he said in a Facebook post of his own yesterday, had the best day of his life outside of his wedding. So good on him. And now we know where he's...
Sure, the guys at supercars are feeling good about that.
Well, we now know, though, where the die is set for next year. He's a full-time IndyCar driver. Big year next year. But there's a lot of off-season testing that comes in the next couple of weeks. So, no, I think it's going to be fantastic to see how it plays out. From Roger Penske's point of view, I think it's very strategic. He has 2 young drivers now in Newgarden and McLaughlin, while the other 2 in Pagenaud and Power are probably at the 3/4 mark or more in their career. So he's future-proofing his team, unlike a little bit like Chip, where he has a 6-time champion in Dixon and now a 7-time champion in Jimmy Johnson joining the team, who's 45, but no major development curve that I see that's that obvious. Okay, Ericsson might still be there, but Roger's already thinking next generation, and I kind of wonder whether Chip's thought that or not. Chip's a smart guy, so, and he could thump me quicker than I could run. So, but it's just one of those things that I thought about yesterday.
Well, I also thought about the mental stress and pressure. Scott McLaughlin is the kind of guy that most motor racers don't melt under that pressure. But the fact that he is an untested, untried rookie from the other side of the world, and he's been given a seat by one of the premier race car teams in the world, the Penske organisation, that's got to tap at the back of your head when you're out there. It really must do. There's a lot on this guy now to, well, okay, pal, you've done well down in Australia. What do you got now on an open wheel? That's huge.
And you're not doing it just to make Shell feel good. You're doing it for a reason. And it's the first rookie driver that Roger has taken on an IndyCar since 1999.
Yeah.
So that says something.
Yes.
So that's
Just
McLaughlin.
for the hell of it.
Back to the Dixon, who actually won the thing. I thought the interesting, in one of the post-matches when they talked about the importance of where did this particular championship sit in relation to the other 5 that he won. He said, well, they're like your kids, aren't they? They're all different. You love them for all very different reasons, but you don't love one more than any other one. It was a really nice touch. I mean, obviously he's a dad to 3 kids, so he kind of understands how that works. But I mean, do you guys, is it even worth rating where they sit? Because when you look at them, each championship, so very different. When he had it in his career, what he was under, the stress, the duress he was under as he was racing at these championships, so different right the way through.
I mean, I've never won that sort of championship. No. That sort of car. So there's no way you can possibly answer that. But I would imagine the first one must be pretty special because that's what you strive for. You are now a champion. Wonderful. And I suppose it's a little bit like the other guy that won a championship, or not won a championship, took a record this last weekend, Lewis Hamilton. The first win must be very important, but the one where you take the record is even more important. Now, he hasn't taken the record yet because AJ Foyt still holds the record over Scott Dixon's. But
One more championship.
Number 6 is pretty impressive, especially when he says, well, number 7 sounds even better. I ain't retiring. I ain't going anywhere. I might be 40 years of age, but I'm still the champion.
So how many race wins is he away? He's 2 away from second place from Andretti, and he's 17 away from equaling AJ Foyt. So unlikely, but not out of the question.
Well, it's not going to happen next year, is it? 17 wins, but what he could do, I suppose, if he starts off and continues the way he started off this year.
I think to me there was a couple of really key parts of the championship season. First of all was the streak that they got on at the beginning, straight out of the box that day at Texas. And that was a race that they flew down to on that morning, practice qualified, raced, and flew home again, because that was the beginning of COVID. And then the run of, the 3 races in a row. Then the little dip in the middle, Newgarden's resurgence, but then Newgarden had a stall in the pit lane at Mid-Ohio, I think it was. That was significant a little bit, because they all contribute to where the points buffer happened. Pagenaud was in the game for quite a while and then faded, but the Ganassi team just kept doing what they were doing, and I think that's the most impressive part of it.
The one thorn in his side was Sato.
Well, in Indy.
For a start,
Indy
the
got
Indy
away
500. And then Sato always seemed to be kind of hanging around him. I mean, look at him.
He haunts me.
Look at him at St. Petersburg. He was, kind of doing the Sato thing. He was up amongst people and bashing them a bit and all the rest of it. I should imagine Scott, every time he saw Sato in his mirrors or anywhere on the track, he'd think, oh, my Lord,
panicking.
Here we go.
You had an extra long bit of string and a very big set of tin cans over the weekend, didn't you?
Yeah, the tin can and the piece of string went high-tech, and we joined an official press conference where I spoke to our winner, our champion, and also caught up with Joseph Newgarden, who I just have to say just gave it absolutely everything in that race.
I put my heart out there today. I think people saw, that I'll do everything I can to put us in a position to win races or win championships, and I've done that ever since I've started driving an IndyCar. So I think if there's anything to say about our performance today, you can definitely draw that. I've tended to be more measured, I think, over the last couple years of my career. Specifically at Team Penske, I think my approach has been more letting things come to us, using our inherent speed and skill sets of our people to maximize the race better than people. Whereas today, the only way to win this race was to just win it. You couldn't rest on just letting it come to you. You had to go and take it. And the only way we were going to win this championship was to go and take the win. So I certainly took that approach from my driving style today. That's, I put it all out there, and I knew we had to go take a victory. And once you get to that point and you're in the lead and you're trying to win the race, fate wasn't in our hand. We just had to wait for something to come our way. And it unfortunately just didn't today.
First of all, I've just got a message from your mum here. She's been texting me like no tomorrow, so we know what your mum's like. So from your mum and your sister, they want to say that they're extremely proud of you. Your mum says, I helped create you, which I'm sure you'd understand that one. And
pretty valid quote there, yeah.
And your sisters have been going, pretty goo-goo watching the race for us here Monday morning in New Zealand. So it was breakfast in a championship for me personally. This is the first one I haven't been at, so thanks very much, COVID. For me, a question for you though. You're one of the only drivers that's actually led a championship run from race 1 right through to this final race, and all the different situations that you've been in over the years. What's it like being chased as opposed to being the chaser?
Yeah, I don't know. It's definitely, I guess it's holiday in New Zealand too, right? So everybody's got the day off, so everybody can have a beer, which is cool. I'll definitely be speaking to Mum a little bit later, and Dad and my sisters. But yeah, it's I don't know. I'd never really done it before. I think when we had the runaway portion, we're like, oh, this is great. But then when you start to see it dwindle, and I've been part of those on the other side. I've been part of those situations. I think with Halio, maybe 2013, we had, a deficit of almost 100 points, or 83, I think is something I remember. And to claw it back and win it that way was, felt tremendous, to the tiebreaker that we had with Montoya in 15, was crazy as well, So I got to say, it feels pretty nice to lead.
and know that you don't have to go through all these weird and crazy scenarios to pull it off, you know, and you just got to have a clean race. But yeah, there was definitely points, I think, through the year that you feel yourself, you slip into you know, issues like I did at Mid-Ohio and came up short, spun, and you lose a boatload of points. But, you know, again, it's nothing you change. It's nothing you do different. It's just, it's crazy. You know, you see it from so many different sides and you're like, oh, you know, they're choking, but you honestly are doing nothing different. So short answer, it feels great to lead from start to finish, you know, and hope we can do it again next year.
And then just one final thing before I let you go. Obviously, it's a team game, as we well know, and those boys in the pit lane, led by Blair, obviously another New Zealander. What's it like for them in this situation as well? You know, like you get into the car and you get into your race mode, and some of it's out of your control and some of it's within your control. But then for them, there's a lot of pressure in pit lane, isn't there?
There is, you know, and those pressures come in different situations, you know, especially when you come in under caution, you know, everybody's packed together and that's when, you know, things can go wrong really quickly. I think for us today, it was very, very smooth as always. You know, they're the best on pit road, you know, year after year. Their record is almost untouched, you know, as far as, you know, pit road time, which, you know, that's why we have a lot of, you know, great championship fights is because of them. But yeah, it's I don't know. Each person deals with it differently. You know, my Emma gets very stressed. You know, she's the one that, you know, I'll wake up in the middle of the night on these weekends and it's 3:00 in the morning and she's on her phone texting people. And, you know, I'm like, you need to go to bed, you know, like it's way too early. So you see that with some of the crew guys as well, boys and girls, you know, you can see it in their face and you know, just their demeanor. But that's what's so important because you see how much it means to them and how much it means to myself and everybody involved. And, you know, that's what I think is so amazing about this team is that everybody here gives 110% every day.
Well, from everyone here in New Zealand, congratulations, number 6. Wish I'd been there, but we'll be there next year when maybe we'll go for number 7. But again, everyone in New Zealand is very, very proud of you. The number of headlines and things is just going crazy. So be very proud. You're a proud Kiwi. Hunter McElREA won a Pro 2000 race today as well. So go the Kiwis.
I saw that. That was cool. Thank you, man.
Your new mate
Thanks, David.
As well. So stay safe and well done.
Cheers. Thanks, buddy. Thanks so much.
And our boy Turner.
He looked pretty relaxed, actually, didn't he? Scott?
He looked relaxed, and yet you saw how almost tired Newgarden looked, which said a lot. Just the amount of mental energy, I think, gone in it, and it was all over and done with. And, of course, you always look, you know, fresh and breezy when you're a champion and a winner, don't you?
I suppose it makes a difference, doesn't it?
It make a huge difference. This is almost at the end of part 1 of the Racing World podcast. Again, if you're watching and you're enjoying, even if you're not enjoying, just do us a favour, like, subscribe and share across all of the platforms you'll find Racing World on. Coming up next, we go into Bob McMurray's happy place, Formula One.
Something else happened at
just to finish off St. Pete, another Kiwi thing, and that was the fact that Hunter McElREA won his first Indy Pro 2000 event for the season. Waited to the end, waited till his dad was leaving because he's been up there all year with him. But, you know, great effort from Hunter, and now we look to see what he'll do next year as well, and certainly hope that he gets another crack at Pro 2000 because he deserves to be there.
On the Racing World podcast, join on YouTube, on Spotify, on Anchor FM and Radio Public. We thank you very much for your time. Formula One up next. Perspective Group is a leading media production company based in Auckland, New Zealand. Established in 2009 by former TVNZ producer David Turner, Perspective Group offers you a vast arrangement of media options to fit any size or budget. It covers truly global services supported by some of New Zealand's leading media talents. For more information, contact Perspective Group Limited at perspectivegroupltd@gmail.com and check out the website perspectivegroupltd.com, where you'll find even more information on creating your media solutions.
You have a dream. You have all the drive in the world. You have talent to burn. Now all you need is a chance. Toyota Motor are committed to developing and nurturing New Zealand's next generation of world-class racing drivers, because if you can dream it, we can do it.
Welcome back to part 2 of the Racing World podcast with Darcy, Bob and David, and we're going now to the wonderful wide world of Formula One and another stunning track. I tell you what, if COVID's done anything, it's really opened eyes to, there's some really nice racetracks over there that Formula One should use instead of some of the cookie cutter rubbish that we have to put up with.
That's right.
You know, Mugello was huge, and what we saw over the weekend with Portimao, it's got to stay. That it's got to stay, doesn't it?
The only shame is it's too short. Well, not too short. It is short. That's all. Because if it was a long track like that, it'd be like Spa or something.
Yeah.
It'd be fantastic, wonderful track. But it's a wonderful facility. It's only 2008 built, and I've never been there, never seen the place. Whatever.
Well, I'll just
but the Algarve is beautiful.
an email and say we'd like it back next year.
Yeah, we'd like to go if you can invite us to come and see it.
And I think that probably Lewis Hamilton wouldn't mind it coming back as well. That will go down in history for Lewis Hamilton. I can't even start to read the records that guy holds in Formula One, but this has got to be one of the most important ones for that young man.
It is huge, and it doesn't matter. You hear all this noise about what a prat he is and all the rest of it, most of which I agree with. But you can't dispute the fact that he's a fantastic racing driver.
Yep.
I mean, you know, there he was at the weekend. He lost the lead effectively. Well, he didn't have it. And McLaren, incidentally, led for 2-3 laps.
As soon as I saw that, here we go.
I just might...
Surprised you didn't lead with that, Bob.
You noticed that there was a McLaren in front, did you? I was thinking about that. But, you know, he then, once they sort of established superiority of the Mercedes, he overtook his teammate. Now, if you've got the same car and you're vying with the driver, the other driver, and you're actually assuming that you can beat that driver, and then suddenly he sweeps past you and he goes on down the road by about 4 or 5 seconds within 2 or 3 laps, you've got to think, what am I doing here?
Well, the first 3 laps, I was like, this is really, really exciting. Raikkonen's gone insane. People are passing everywhere. The Mercedes aren't one. I was like, this is the best racetrack in the world. And then by lap 8, it's like, right, okay, now you've got a 4-second lead.
Yeah.
Business as usual. We go back to the same place.
Geez.
So, and talking about that disparity with teammates, is anyone playing violins for Vettel at the moment with what we're seeing there? Wow.
They're now saying, has he got the same car? Is Ferrari, are they dudding him on a car? Well, why would you? I just don't understand that.
Well, no, because you've still got your
not
brand to protect. So
Yeah, he's
Ferrari
just-
are not completely stupid.
He's just not with the story. That's all simple as that. And talking about drivers at the beginning, if anybody has not seen the little YouTube clip of Kimi Raikkonen from the start, where he lost a position at the start and then proceeded to drive through like he's exiting a car park, overtaking people left, right and centre. And then after the race, he said, I wonder what they were all doing because they were so slow. I mean, that was pretty wonderful.
I'll try and find the clip and I'll put it in our comments section. So if you're watching this via an electronic media, you'll be able to click and see it.
It was wonderful. And it's just wonderful to see him there, the oldest guy, and he's 45. Just wonderful to see him.
It was wonderful that Lewis Hamilton chalked off that 92nd win. He's up 97, is it? Pole positions now, 160. All right, the list goes on as far as maybe you can do your magic and run something down the bottom of the screen so I don't look so stupid. But when you look back at it again, like we've had all throughout the year, you've got a couple of Mercedes running around, you've got a Red Bull having a bit of fun, and then you've kind of got the rest. That's where all the action is.
But it's quite tight there.
It's very tight. And look, it's good because once you know that Mercedes are off up the front, there's no catching them, then you go back to focus on the rest of these guys fighting. And there's some beautiful scraps going on, especially on that track. Yeah. There was some hair-raising wheel-to-wheel, several corner stoushes with some of these younger guys and older guys.
A bit of elevation, a bit of twistiness on the track, and it threw a bit of uncertainty into like third place and downwards. 1, 2, 3 were fairly set for most of the time. But what it did do, incidentally, I think, is put the focus on a lot of the co-drivers, I'm going to call them now, the number 2s. Alex Albon, for instance, and he's struggling. Vettel, certainly, he's struggling. Stroll, I mean, he had COVID or whatever he did have. They're hiding that every so often. Yeah. And God, I wasn't going to have a rant, but I'm not going to have a rant. But isn't it amazing how the team managers immediately they immediately jump to the defence of their driver. Like Stroll made mistakes and Perez made mistakes, but not in the eyes of the management of Racing Point. No, they were dudded. They shouldn't have done that. God, and Christian Horner's the same. I mean, just waste of time.
But you said earlier in the show about when we were talking about Dixon, and you wondered what it'd be like to win a championship and all of that sort of scenario. Well, there's 2 seats available now at Haas for you for next year, so maybe you'll get your chance.
Well, yeah, they're taking rookie drivers. They're going to take rookie drivers. We're going to take rookie drivers with money.
Okay,
Just
so
look
that rules
around
you
you.
out.
What do you think I'm missing here?
Okay, well, I tried.
Yeah,
Who do we think will go there, though?
Go fund me. If you want to get Bob in a Formula 1 car.
Yeah, that'll be an effort. I don't know who's going to go there. They say Mazepin because of the money. They're talking about him. Mick Schumacher, yeah, he might have a bit of assistance from Ferrari Central, I suppose. I don't know. It depends on Perez, because Perez is being talked about to go to Williams, which is I think is going to be a massive, what's the word? Dudding, if that's the word, of George Russell,
Yeah,
because
me too.
George Russell is so underrated. No, he's very well rated, but in that car he can't show any.
No, he
any
just
great
deserves to be on the grid.
Needs
But
to
don't
be
you
there.
think, though, that the powers that be can see through that and understand what
Well, I'm
equipment
sure-
he's dealing with and go, actually, the guy's got talent even in a...
Economics of the sport.
Yeah, but I'm sure they can. Mercedes can, because they're looking after him. Toto Wolff is heavily involved in his career, but Williams don't have any money. So when somebody's coming along like Perez, who's got a mate who owns half the money in Mexico, in the Slim family and all that sort of stuff, what are they going to take? They're going to take money. And you've got to say that Perez is a pretty decent driver anyway. But is he going to be better than Russell? I don't know, in that car. Probably if the car's developed next year. But it was an interesting race completely. Going on to the number 2s again, Esteban Ocon, not quite what Ricciardo is. And Ocon was mooted as one of the coming drivers. Hopefully he is still coming. Pierre Gasly continues to shine in Alpha Tauri. Carlos Sainz and Lando Norris, they're pretty much equal. George Russell is so much better than Latifi, but Latifi's got zeros after his name, like you wouldn't believe, courtesy of his dad. So, yeah, it's a mixed-up thing. Anyway, we go from there and we go to Imola next weekend for the Grand Prix of something or other, I can't remember. What is it called? It's going to be I don't know, what have they got?
We go to Imola.
Yeah,
we
well,
go
while
to
he's
Imola.
finding his stats,
It's
I
another
found my other
Grand
ones.
Prix.
92 race wins, 97 poles. These are both records, as well as 161 podiums, which is also a Formula 1 record, and 262 consecutive starts. That's quite a record. This is all Lewis Hamilton. That's one that I'd miss because I'm not exactly a nuffy, but says a lot about what the guy can do, and I suppose his ability to not get sick or crash more than anything, huh?
He's good.
Yeah,
Dependent-
he's very good.
Doesn't matter what he's like out of the race car, you can think what you like. He's got the guts to say what he thinks, I give him that. He's got the guts to stand up and proclaim his beliefs. Well, fine. Although,
Does anyone challenge him, or does he just eventually retire unbeatable with 10 Formula 1 World Championships?
Well, the only person that's going to challenge him really at the moment is going to be Max Verstappen, but Verstappen's not going to do it this year. He's going to be third all the time, and he's not going to do it next year because they're running out of
cars.
engines because of Honda. So what's coming after that? I don't know. Mercedes might pull out. Who knows? Red Bull are talking about pulling out if they can't get their Honda engine deal, the one they want it to be. In other words, to develop the Honda engines themselves. But they want an engine freeze. Now, they want to change the regulations that they've already agreed to. They want to have an engine freeze now. And Mercedes are saying, well, you can't do that because we've already agreed that the engine freeze is not going to happen for next year. It's going to happen after that. So they're saying, oh, no, we that. Otherwise, we pull out of racing. Oh, for God's sake, all these bloody people. If Ferrari pull out, if Mercedes pull out, and if Red Bull pull out, we might have a decent new championship with hardly any cars.
Well, I'm going to keep it on a positive note.
Yes.
Because positivity is a good thing. Another Kiwi win over the weekend as well, not to do with INDYCAR.
Yeah, at Spa.
Yes.
Spa, which was unexpected. They qualified, I'm looking here, in
Talking Will
20th
Bamber
position. Earl Bamber.
Earl
Bamber, Nick Tandy, and Lawrence Ventura. And when you actually read, I didn't see it. I know it was on TV somewhere. I didn't actually see it. But when you read the story of the race, which was quite interesting, they started on 20th on the grid. And what Tandy said afterwards was, I'll paraphrase it, the pressure increased on Tandy halfway around the penultimate lap when his row Porsche encountered transmission problems. He said, had a small lockup going into a hairpin, then immediately there was this noise. It sounded to me as if the drive shaft joint had broken, but the car was still driving. Tandy suggested that the transmission issue might have worked in Rowe's favour. Unfortunately for our competitors, we coated the track in oil, and this probably saved us because I had to drive the last lap and a half, not going flat out and coasting into the corners, and they were driving on our oil behind us, so we were going faster. So good on Earl Bamber. Once again, Earl Bamber, he just keeps on. Yep. He's the gift that keeps on giving, isn't he? He's just a wonderful driver with his co-drivers in all sorts of sports car racing. You wonder what other people would do, like Earl, Shane, even if they went to INDYCAR or if they went to Formula One or with tests. I don't know. I know Scott had one once, but with the Williams. But there you go.
Again, it just says we have good pedigree in this country and there's plenty more of it to come.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Anything else to touch off on there, Bob, before we say sayonara to the
NASCAR,
still
as we
going?
record this,
Rain
is still going round and round and round. That's all. MotoGP, I did see some MotoGP. Franco Morbidelli won that from Alex Rins and Joan Mir. Quartararo is he's still second in the championship, but he's having so many problems at the Aragon circuit that he's dropped into second. Joan Mir, the Suzukis are doing really well now. Once again, Jack Miller had a bit of a problem. I think he's popped his shoulder out when he was hit up the arse. By Binder on the first lap. First corner going into the second corner.
Right. Great guest on the show next week.
Yeah, Adrian Burgess, an old cobber of yours, a man I met a few years ago. Super good guy. Of course, he's the head of motorsport for the Virgin Australia Supercar. We can't say that for much longer, by the way, can we? No. Repco taking it over.
Virgin/Repco.
Yeah, Australian Supercars Series. So we're lucky enough to have Adrian Burgess join us on the show to cover off what is for every sport, every category, been a very, very bizarre year. So that is next week, ladies and gentlemen. Adrian Burgess joining us on the show, and we'll back up the fun and games in Imola as well.
We will. I'm looking forward to seeing that. Have been there since 2006, have they? Or whatever. I think it was 2006 was the last Grand Prix there. So a storied, historic track.
If you're watching on YouTube, like, share, subscribe. Same goes with Spotify, with Anchor FM and Radio Public. My name's Darcy Watergrave, along with Bob McMurray and David Turner. It's been a real pleasure bringing you yet another edition of Racing World. Look after yourself.
Race Control Magazine is your IndyCar fan mag and so much more. Publishing monthly online on issuu.com, you will find Race Control Magazine there for you to download and enjoy everything IndyCar and so much more. Behind-the-scenes features, race reports and the entire Road to Indy series are just part of what you will find, along with stunning images captured from the series' leading photographers. Grab your copy today at issw.com to complete your motorsport read.
You have a dream. You have all the drive in the world. You have talent to burn. Now all you need is a chance. Toyota are committed to developing and nurturing New Zealand's next generation of world-class racing drivers, because if you can dream it, we can do it.
Racing World is presented by Race Control Magazine.